These are Nebraska corn farmers. They work in acres, not hours, harvesting the energy and climate solutions the world needs. We are proud to stand with you.
The success of tomorrow's soy industry depends on the actions we take today. The future is here, and the time to move is now.
Market Journal, Television for Agricultural Business Decisions, is a presentation of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources in partnership with the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Promotional support provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine, and partial funding provided by the Nebraska Soybean Board and the Nebraska Corn Board.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Makovica, and thanks for joining us today on Market Journal. Bryce Duskett is out on assignment this week, so today we're taking you out to last week's National Association of Farm Broadcasting Convention that took place in Kansas City, Missouri. During our time there, Bryce had the opportunity to catch up with several ag representatives and get their insight into how 2024 has been going and what you should be on the lookout for in 2025. Kicking things off today, as you know, we like to keep tabs on how things are shaping up and turning out in the field. During last week's taping in Kansas City, the Market Journal team caught up with custom harvester Paul Paplo to get his take on Harvest 2024.
Thanks for sitting down with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell me about your harvest run, summer run. I suppose it starts with wheat.
Yep, yeah, summer run. So we started in North Texas this year, and which probably had the best crop we'd ever harvested in Texas. Most of the summer harvest from Oklahoma, southern Kansas was good. Western Kansas a little struggling. Nebraska had a good crop. Montana had an awesome crop again. We finished up in northwest North Dakota, and they had a respectable crop, nothing special, but it was a very good crop. From there, we returned back to southwest Minnesota, northwest Iowa, and eastern South Dakota. And eastern South Dakota had a pretty nice crop around our home area, northwest Iowa, southwest Minnesota. We were down quite a bit from normal. I'd say probably 30-40% down compared to the last 2 or 3 years on average. So overall a good year, but definitely the crops struggled at home because of wet spring and dry summer.
You may start with wheat, but you've got a lot of crops you're harvesting along the way. How many different crops do you harvest?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the number, but we do a lot of wheat, canola, lentils, field peas, chickpeas, mustard, corn, soybeans, camelina. Got a pretty good variety of stuff that we do.
Tell me about the size of your operation and the number of acres you're able to cover in a year.
We run 10 machines ourselves, all Class 8 Case H machines. We cover about 130 to 140,000 this past year, which would have probably been our biggest year we ever had.
Is that pretty standard with the industry right now?
You know, I'd say that we probably push a little harder than a lot of harvesters do, but I would say most harvesters would be that 8,000 to 9,000 per machine would be my estimate.
That we visit with folks like yourself from the U.S. Custom Harvesters Inc. group. We learn about labor challenges, and a lot of them will turn to the H-2A program. You and I were visiting. You've got an American crew that you run, and you've got creative with your recruitment efforts.
Yep. So, you know, basically social media is our biggest thing that we can do. TikTok, Facebook is probably where we do the most recruiting for help. And, you know, we got a lot of employees that do a lot of TikTok. So usually people see that and they'll follow our crew. Then if they're interested next year, they start sending sending applications in for us.
What kinds of content are you all posting on TikTok?
Only the good stuff. The pretty pictures, the pretty sunsets, and equipment running the way it should.
Not the breakdowns.
Never the breakdowns.
That's an interesting, the labor challenge. I guess it's not a challenge per se, but you were sharing, you know, kind of since COVID, you all have been fairly lucky in your recruitment efforts and keeping a good crew going.
Yeah, it has been. You know, with the pandemic, it really kind of took a toll on us. It was hard to find labor. First couple years after the pandemic, it got a little bit better, but still struggled. But it seemed about a year ago, the American interest has really come back around for join the wheat harvest. And yeah, this past year was very easy finding help for us.
You run the crew with your dad, it sounds like. How have you and how has he seen this industry change?
It's changed, you know, the amount of harvesters that are out there, it's nothing like what it used to be. We used to go to Anthony, Kansas, or we still go there, but back when I started going there in the early 90s, there was probably 30 crews in that town. Now I think there's 3 crews. The size machines, you don't need near as many machines anymore, but it just seems like a lot of harvesters have grown in size too. So a lot of guys gotten out and just don't need the machines like we used to.
Is that a decline in wheat acres in particular, or are local farmers opting to harvest on their own?
Probably a little bit of both. Wheat acres definitely down from where they used to be. Our wheat harvest is bigger than it ever has been, so it seems like we've been able to pick up wheat acres, but in general, the wheat acres are not there. And then some farmers are doing stuff themselves down south, where it used to be primarily custom harvested. You get northern states, though, where it used to all be farmer-owned machines. It seems like they're switching to a lot of custom harvesting now, too. So it's kind of changed in a lot of the areas where, they used to be predominant one way or the other.
So a common theme with our conversations this week as we're visiting at Kansas City is the downward ag economy. How has that impacted you and your operation?
It's definitely impacted us. Equipment costs has been a big issue with us. We need to up our rates, but it's hard to up our rates because downturn farmers can't afford to pay us anymore. And I understand it, and they understand our point of view too. But they might have a budget where they can hire X amount of acres done or X amount of dollars they can spend. Or a guy maybe give us 3,000 acres last year. This year he might only give us 2,000 because he just does not have the budget for it. So he can only give us a little bit. He's just got to spend more time trying to keep his costs down by doing his own stuff.
What's the best part of your job?
Finishing every year. So now the best part of my job is the farmers, the relationships you gain with them, friendships. So there's a lot of trying times, a lot of struggles, but at the end of the day, it's the farmers you get to know and basically like family. So
it's always neat to learn about production agriculture in surrounding states. So if you would like to learn more about U.S. custom harvesters, we've added a link to their website along with this story on the Market Journal homepage. Moving on, while we were in Kansas City last week, our crew met Bart Ruth. He's a corn and soybean producer near Rising City, Nebraska, but also the former president of the American Soybean Association. However, Bart was on hand to discuss his role as committee co-chair for 25 by 25. This initiative is finding ways to make working lands in the U.S. a provider of 25% of the total energy consumed in the United States.
Well, 25 by 25 has its origins way back in 2004 when a group of prominent farm leaders from across the U.S. were having conversations and realized that America's farms, ranches, and forests could play a meaningful role in creating energy for our nation. And from those discussions, they created a working group and established a goal of getting 25% of our nation's energy supply from renewables by the year 2025. So group got really rolling. We got that adopted as part of the nation's energy strategy and the Energy Security Act of 2007. Had a number of governors across the country signing on in support of that goal. And well, we're getting close to 2025, and I guess I'm happy to say that over 20% of our nation's electricity is now generated with renewable energy. So we've made meaningful growth in that. We've been all-encompassing. We've talked about biofuels. We've talked about hydrogen, hydroelectric power, solar power, wind power, all those things that America's farms, ranches, and forests can contribute.
How are we doing in the biofuel space when it comes to 25%?
Well, we've got a ways to go. I mean, we're obviously over 10% nationwide in the fuel area with corn ethanol. Continue to make progress on the diesel side. I think there's probably going to be a renewed emphasis on that as we seem to be having a political shift away from EVs that were started several years ago, and we've seen public demand starting to drop off. And I think with this incoming administration, I think we'll see a push toward more fossil fuel vehicles and how we blend in renewables into that mix. So I think we've got a long way to go, a lot more opportunity. And once we've started this process of talking about renewable energy, we quickly realized that a lot of the things we're doing on land today with renewable energy also have meaningful benefits to the environment, to the climate, to the soil health of our nation. So that's kind of the impetus for the next phase of the organization, which is Solutions from the Land.
Tell me about that next phase and what that's going to look like.
Well, climate smart agriculture has been a center point of a lot of the programs that we've established. We've had climate smart agriculture programs start up in Iowa, in Florida, and Indiana. We've had an active role in conversations globally through the UN process. We have a delegation in Azerbaijan this week and next at the COP conversations, trying to become more part of the conversation about how we implement climate mitigation across the planet. A lot of the early efforts through the UN have been on small shareholders in the developing world. And our position has always been that if you really want to make meaningful contributions, you need to be embracing these practices on large landscapes. And that's where North American producers come in. I'm having a lot of conversations with European producers and as well as New Zealand and Australia to try to get to be more part of the conversation instead of the global bureaucracy attempting to solve these issues. We need to have people that actually have their boots on the ground, that are implementing practices that have meaningful benefits.
As I think about the conversations happening now, as you reference the delegation traveling, I think maybe frustrating is the word I would use to describe some farmer sentiment toward climate goals that get set at those big meetings, but you all are having a seat at the table. How important is that? Well, a consistent voice around that and to be able to represent the agriculture industry.
Well, I think that's key. I think early on we recognized that agriculture was really on the sidelines, and I know there's still a lot of skepticism within the agriculture community about whether climate change is real, but I think we all recognize that something is different. We have shorter windows to plant. When I was younger, it seemed like you had 6 weeks to plant. Now you get 6 days, and so whether man is actually causing the issue or not, I think we're making some meaningful changes that are good for the planet. And I think it's important that farmers are at the table. Otherwise, it's people with no agriculture knowledge and bureaucracies that are going to be making those decisions. So we've been successful in getting farmers on some of these panels. We've been in front of the audience giving presentations. And so providing education to the policymakers is critical. So I think we need to embrace that role and continue doing that.
Some really interesting work being done by that organization. If you'd like to learn more about the 25 by 25 Legacy Project, you can learn more by visiting solutionsfromtheland.org. It's that time of the program when we turn our attention over to the markets. And this week, we explore current land values and the impact that could have on farms and ranches in the areas in the coming year.
We're visiting now with Paul Shidegg. He is the Senior Vice President, Real Estate with Farmers National Company. We like visiting with you guys several times throughout the year to get a pulse of what's happening out there in the countryside, especially as it relates to land prices. What's the news of 2024 as we get ready to enter a new year?
Yeah, the land market is always an interesting topic and on the forefront of everybody's mind in agriculture, because that's really the factory and how people make their livelihood. But the word that we keep bringing up is resiliency, because even though we've seen commodity markets depressed and the economy kind of slow down, the activity in land transfers is still very active. Probably the only downside of that is we see fewer listings out there. Across the industry, we're probably 20-25% down in listings, but we still have a very strong group of motivated buyers.
When it comes to the land that sells, you all track the buyers, whether they're farmers or outside investors. As you look back at the past 12 months or so, how are we trending in those percents?
Yeah, historically, we've seen the farm operators are the primary buyer of land, and it has been as high when the commodity markets were high. The percentage of about 80% operators buying versus others, investors, funds, things like that. We've seen that shift slightly. We're probably about 70% of the buyers are still farm operators, and we're seeing a slight uptick in interest from institutional buyers and land investors.
Overall, prices remain still elevated, I guess. Is that a fair way to ask that question? What do you see with trends?
Yeah, when we look at the trends over the past 5 years, we saw a really sharp spike there in 2021, 22, and it certainly has settled from there. But we have not seen the floor drop. We're still seeing some very strong interest from buyers. That's what's going to continue to drive the market. And we've seen lower quality land settle a little bit. The high quality land is still selling. It's not going up any higher like it was a couple of years ago, but definitely seeing some stability there.
Sounds like as we look out to 2025, we're expecting more of the same. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. Even in spite of all of the negative pressures in agriculture, whether it's the economy or commodities or net farm income, we're still seeing a very, very strong market. And so I look at stability as probably the word is as we move into 2025. I expect the stability, and maybe we'll see some positive aspects if we see any kind of turnaround in the commodity markets and the ag economy in general.
Farmers National Company, obviously dealing on the real estate side, but also in the land management. You guys are tracking cash rental rates. What are you expecting in the new year?
We've seen a little bit of a downtick in cash rents, primarily in those areas that have historically been fairly high. And of course, when you look at where things are profitability-wise on the farm, we're definitely going to see a little bit of a settling of those cash rent values, but there's still great demand for land because without it, the producers can't operate.
Let me ask you this: from your seat, what does the future of land ownership look like?
When we look through our long-range plan and we try to decide who's going to be the future owner of land, we'll still continue to see those individual ownership models where someone either inherited the family farm or they decided to keep the family farm. But we are seeing a little bit of stronger interest in what we call institutional land ownership through funds and investment groups. So I think we'll continue to see that trend move upward just a little bit.
It seems like there's always interest in groups outside of the U.S. In fact, we talked a lot about that at last year's convention. Mm-hmm. You still see a lot of concern in that space, or has policy and studies been enacted to kind of cool the waters out?
I would say that the waters have definitely cooled a little bit on that. There's still concern, especially from countries like China, what we'll call our adversaries. We want to be very careful, and I think there have been things implemented across states that have slowed down some of that purchasing. But overall, when you look at the broad picture, there's a very small amount of foreign ownership in the U.S. And of that foreign ownership, most of it is what we would consider our allies, Canada, some people from the European Union. And so it really settled everyone's concern once we outlined that.
What else is on your mind?
Well, overall, it's we kind of went through a time ahead of this election on what's going to happen. There was a little bit of anxiety out in the market, but as we move into 2025, I see a lot of potential positive aspects in agriculture in general. There's still a lot of pro-ag outlook, and like I said earlier, with just a little bit of change and a little bit of positive movement in commodity markets and the ag economy in general, I think we'll continue to move upward and onward.
You make those markets go up, everybody will be happy with Paul.
Yeah, I think so. We can write an article today and talk about where the land market is, but things can change pretty quick in this day and age.
You can get more insights from Farmers National Company. You're encouraged to check out their website, farmersnational.com. And as always, if you have questions you'd like to ask any of our future market analysts, just get in touch with us on email or social media. We'll be sure to pass those questions along. Robots building robots. Is that a theme for a sci-fi movie, or is it real life? Well, in the case of Ranke Manufacturing, based in Deschler, Nebraska, it's real life. The center pivot manufacturer recently announced a $12 million investment in new automation that will increase efficiencies in pipe production for the company's center pivots. Considering the fact that center pivots were among the first autonomous machines working in the field, this is just another innovation along those lines. Learn all about it in the November issue of Nebraska Farmer. It's time now to get a check-in on the weather with Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Eric Hunt. And Eric, the cold has arrived throughout much of the state. How are things looking in the week ahead, though?
Well, thanks, Alex. We do have some colder weather to talk about coming up this week. But first, I want to showcase a couple opportunities to attend a soil health conference in early 2025. First one on January 29th in Hastings, and the other on February 11th in West Point. After a relatively mild weekend for most of us, we will be getting colder on Monday after a cold front moves through on Sunday night. So on Monday, we'll probably expect temperatures to be mostly in the 30s across northeastern Nebraska, warming a little bit more as we head into the western portion of the state. Bouncing back a little bit more on Tuesday. By Wednesday, though, we will be looking at a potential for another storm system moving into the central U.S. So notice here we do have forecasts of troughing here across the Rockies. And the storm system is expected to eject out into the central plains on Wednesday night into Thursday or potentially even into Friday. That will give a chance for precipitation for a large portion of this part of the country. Now, this is not a particularly strong system, or at least that's the appearance of it right now. It doesn't appear to be that strong. And there's not going to be tapping into a lot of Gulf moisture, so we're not talking about prodigious amounts of precipitation. Nevertheless, we are talking about the opportunity for mixed precipitation or snowfall in our area on Thanksgiving that could impact travel plans. So I would recommend paying very close attention to the forecast as you head into early portions of next week. So I think the details of this are still being more finely tuned, so to speak. But we are definitely going to have a chance of picking up some precipitation across pretty much the entire state, except for maybe far north central Nebraska. Heaviest amounts likely to be to our east and southeast. And we are going to have a chance of picking up a couple inches of snow across particularly the I-80 corridor in Nebraska. So please just keep this in mind if you had travel plans during the day on Thursday. It could be a little bit of a white Thanksgiving. What I'm a little bit more confident, though, is we are going to be much colder as we head toward the end of this next week and early portion of December. Most indications are right now that we'll probably go below freezing statewide sometime on Friday and probably not climb above freezing again for about 3, maybe 4 days. This does not look like a particularly long duration event, so I think by the time we head toward the 4th, 5th of December, we'll probably be back in milder air into at least the plains region of the central U.S. But it will be pretty cold after Thanksgiving and for the very first couple of days of December. We've had a very warm fall, so this might feel like a little bit of a shock to some of us. Precipitation, CPC is showing above average precipitation being a possibility across the High Plains region. I do think we'll have to watch out for potential for some more snow in our area by about the first portion of this first couple of days of December. In terms of precipitation, we did pick up some decent precipitation amounts across the eastern half of the state. Unfortunately, where we really need the rain the most, we didn't get it out here in the northern part of the Panhandle, but a lot of central and northeastern Nebraska picked up 1.5 inches. A couple places picked up over 2 inches of rain here in northeastern Nebraska. Pretty good rains here across southeastern Nebraska as well. All this is good in terms of helping relieve the drought a little bit. We now have under 50% of the state in severe drought on the U.S. Drought Monitor. That's very good news. And we have definitely seen some improvement in soil moisture across this region. Now, we definitely have capacity for more moisture. We are certainly not at a profile, but this is much better than what it looked like about a month ago. Our soil temperatures right now mostly are in the low to mid 30s to low 40s across the state. So they have come down a good bit. They are now safely staying below 50 degrees pretty much everywhere. Temperature precipitation roundup. Back to you, Alex.
Thanks so much, Eric. Finally today, one of the best aspects of going to convention like NAFB is getting to see and learn about new technology and equipment that's available to farmers and ranchers. This year was no exception as we learned about the Ag Wagon.
Thanks for visiting with us. This is a pretty cool announcement you made. Designed a pickup just for the farmer and rancher. What's this thing look like?
Now, Bryce, first of all, thank you for having us. But as we share with folks, firefighters, they have their own specialty truck. Tow companies have their own specialty truck. Agriculture, the oldest and arguably most important occupation in the world, has never had its own truck. So we have been collaborating. When I say we, it's a stakeholder group of 14 farmers and ranchers have been collaborating for almost a year with the engineers at Fox Factory, the most prominent off-road performance company in the world, to create the perfect agriculture truck. We presented that group of farmers and ranchers with 3 questions. What do you love about your trucks? What do you hate about your trucks? What would make perfect farmer ranch truck? And through that, we've created the Ag Wagon.
Give an idea of some of the features that make this different from a standard pickup someone would buy.
Sure, and that's the big thing is that you're not buying a truck off the shelf here. You're not buying one that's stock, that's been designed to serve all these other purposes beyond agriculture. So the first thing that this group said was we need a truck with a heavier duty front suspension. We were replacing our front suspensions way too frequently. It costs money, it's downtime, it's a problem. So the Fox engineers dove in, redesigned their Fox 2.5 suspension, which is the one that they run in all their high-performance Baja racing units around the world, tore it apart and rebuilt it so that it's not designed to take that high-speed, rocky impact. It takes a slow-speed, deeper impact like you're going to have with a dead furrow or a pocked pasture or washboards and under heavier weights. So it's a whole new 2.5 system that also incorporates the BDS trailing arms, the shock towers, totally rebuilds that front suspension. Tires, that was another thing these guys said, we need better tires. BF Goodrich HD terrain tires. Brand new wheels designed by Fox Factory's Method Wheel Company, which shred mud and manure and snow and everything at a much slower speed. Get it out of the wheels so you don't have that off-balance activity on the road. 360-degree high LED lighting like you see on your tractors. now on the ag wagon because work doesn't stop when it's dark. I mean, we could keep going. Two-way radio systems, Bryce, comes with a two-way radio in it, programmable to the farm's two-way radio system. So everything that a farmer or rancher would want in their truck from the manufacturer, they're going to get from the ag wagon.
There were 14 farmers and ranchers consulting you along the way. What was their response as they saw what you unveiled?
The farmers and ranchers are ecstatic. And what they really love about it is we've got the base ag wagon, which as a group, collectively, there were common things that they all wanted. And that makes up the base ag wagon. But then there's the specialty components. The fruit grower in Michigan does not need what the rancher in Colorado needs. And so the ability to customize it from the base. So you've got a flatbed with bale arms versus a flatbed that'll handle crates of cherries that are hydro-cooled. 2 different flatbeds. You can customize it with 7 different flatbed options. The Starlink portable internet access. Guys in the East don't have as big of a problem with that because cell coverage is really good. Guys out West, they said, we need help with this. So you can get Starlink mobile internet access with that truck where you can access high-speed internet anywhere. Those are the kind of things that you can do to upgrade this to your own unique needs.
Sounds pretty neat.
Yeah.
You are going to be going to production very soon and continue that through 2025, and people can pre-order theirs online right now, correct?
They can. So we go to production with the Fords first, so Ford ag wagons. It's really unique. So how it works is when you build a prototype, you're actually building out the production line. For everything we knew about agriculture, we didn't know any of this about automotive, so we learned too. But so the Ford was the first prototype we built, so the Ford production line is the first one ready to go, going to production in December with those. Ram will be right after that in January, and then we'll go to production with the General Motors products in Q2 2025. And the Rams that we go to production with will be 24 model year, tons of those out there on the lots and whatnot. And if you find one on the lot that you want, you can actually have that sent to Fox Factory, turned into an ag wagon and sent back. But the 25 Rams haven't been released yet, and there's some big changes between 24 and 25. So we'll be doing a 25 version later.
And you can learn more about the options available in the new Ag Wagon by going to their website, agwagon.com. That's going to do it for this week's show. A special thanks to all the vendors and experts who took time to sit down with us during this year's NAFB convention. We'll have more content from that convention in the coming weeks. But if you missed a story for now, be sure to follow Market Journal on YouTube and social media to join in on the conversation. Until then, I hope to see you right back here next time. I'm Alex Makovica, wishing you a safe week. Thanks for joining.
Join Market Journal online at marketjournal.unl.edu. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Promotional support is provided by the Nebraska Farmer Magazine. Market Journal is produced by the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Institute of Agriculture and Natural Resources.